Mr. D'Souza, in a recent essay, you held what you call Darwinism responsible for such evils as the eugenics movement of the 20th century, genocide, and so forth. Could you articulate for us your position on evolution, on intelligent design's so-called theory? And do you believe that wide embrace of the fact of evolution necessarily leads to the moral decay of society?
Well, my position is very simply this. I think that there is a lot of evidence for biological evolution. I defend the idea of evolution in my book. I distinguish the scientific facts about evolution with something I call metaphysical Darwinism. If you read Richard Dawkins and Daniel Dennett, you see that they're not just talking about the transition from life form A to life form B. Evolution, I think, is true as far as it goes, but it doesn't go nearly as far as these guys claim. To give you one simple example, at one point, Dawkins speculates on the possibility of the fact that we may live not in one universe, but in an infinity of universes, then raising the question of how some universes survive. And he thinks that that could be by Darwinian evolution. In other words, natural competition among universes, in which some universes make it and others don't. Well, we are going a little far afield from what the biologists have been able to show on the ground and through the facts of physical science. When the evolutionist purports to explain everything from why men don't like to eat vegetables, to why women like to ask for directions, simply by saying, hey, evolution explains it. At one point, in fact, you have contradictory explanations being given by the same set of facts. So at one point, to give you an example, Dawkins, he's talking about why the peacock likes to show its feathers. This would seem to be evolutionary, from an evolutionary point of view, a problem. Because in displaying the feathers, the peacock attracts predators that are more likely to eat the peacock. But Dawkins says, well, but maybe there is an evolutionary explanation. Maybe the peacock is trying to show off to Mrs. Peacock. So if the peacock has no feathers, hey, we can explain that by Darwin, because if it had feathers, the predator would eat it. But if the peacock has feathers, hey, Darwin comes in to explain that too, because it's a show-off mechanism to Mrs. Peacock. This is called using the same facts. You essentially have an unscientific application of Darwinism here, because there is no possibility of challenging or refuting such a theory. If a theory can be used to explain contradictory facts, and I cite Dawkins in my book saying, even if there was no evidence for evolution, we should still take it to be true. This kind of stuff, I think, would embarrass even a religious believer. Because even the religious believer doesn't say that even if God didn't exist, we should still believe in him. Even the religious believer can entertain the possibility that God may not exist, and in fact struggles with that many times. So, I distinguish evolution, the scientific theory, which I believe in, from metaphysical Darwinism, which I see as an ideological masquerade for atheism. It is an effort to try to put an atheist spin on evolutionary theory and to claim for evolution far more than it actually explains.
Next question, please.
At first, this debate wasn't about whether religion was either, true or false, but whether it was a help or hindrance. So I'm wondering, why do you consider writings about not to lie, steal, and murder, and that you should be nice to other people and you should respect them bad?
Who's your question for?
Well, the first account that I know of what we commonly call the Golden Rule was do to others as you'd wish them to do to you, or rather, it's sometimes phrased, was in fact phrased by the Babylonian rabbi Apostles, though it has a huge element of tautology in it, it comes from the analects of Confucius. Some people say Confucianism is a religion, some say not.
They say it's really ready.
I would say it isn't. Certainly well predates any monotheism we know about. What we don't have is any evidence of any human society where theft, perjury, murder, incest, and so forth were condoned. It seems very improbable that such a society would have survived to tell the tale. And indeed, with certain prohibitions that most people don't need to have reinforced, such as cannibalism and incest, as a matter of fact, evolution by natural selection, that powerful, if I agree with Dinesh, somewhat overrated force, will make sure that the tribe dies out in any case. So there's no chance of that transgression going unpunished, whether you believe in the supernatural or otherwise. What I object to in the insinuation of your remark is that we wouldn't know these things, you and I, we don't know each other, but that you and I couldn't be relied upon to tell a wrong action from a right one, or a moral action from an immoral one, without supernatural permission. I have no idea what makes you think that there's anything to that proposition, or why you'd want people to be so abject and so contemptible that without being told this by witch doctors, or instructed by the heavens, or by earthquakes or fires or floods, they wouldn't be able to derive it from their own experience of human solidarity, which is certainly how I found it out, which requires no underpinning from priests, rabbis, or mullahs.
You look like someone who must get in the last word.
Well, I think the argument about morality is not the fact that we couldn't be good without God. But think about it this way. If moral rules are universal, then that is something very odd. Because if we are evolved primates, driven by an impulse to survive and reproduce, it is conceivable that one group or another might have, through some set of accidents, come up with a set of rules that cut in the other direction. Think about the essence of morality. It is to militate against self-interest. If morality were congruent with self-interest, we wouldn't need it. Nobody needs to tell you to go out and make money. There's a natural drive telling you to do that. No one has to tell you to be powerful, to seek what you want. Morality is the voice that tells you against what you want to do. You're walking on the riverbank, you hear, help, 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 I'm drowning. You're not a very good swimmer. Your natural instinct is to keep going. That guy is nothing to you. It's not your brother, it's not your wife, it's a stranger. But the little voice in your head turns on and says, you should try to help. At least put out a stick. Now what I ask is, where does this voice that has no Darwinian explanation whatsoever, call it the voice of pure altruism, it cannot be explained by reciprocal advantage or genetic kinship or any other of the elaborate theories.
Animals do it. Animals do it.
Well, if animals do it, that's interesting in its own right, but it doesn't mean that there's a Darwinian explanation that's been given. You've simply extended the problem further.
Okay, with that, with that, we must. I'm sorry.
Primates do it, many other mammals.
Yeah.
For the obvious reason, for the survival of the
Okay.
species.
We must call this part of it to an end. I'm going to make a couple of requests. Let's give these gentlemen an incredible round of applause. Oh, okay, they are supposed to vote. I'm told you're supposed to vote on who won the debate. I think there was some deal about the winner gets all of the honoraria or something like that. I'm not real sure, but okay. Very quickly, if you have your blue paddles, great. If you only have your hands up. Who thinks Christopher Hitchens won the debate? Okay, all right. Hands down. Let's get an objective opinion here, Alec. I'm going to need your help on this. Dinesh D'Souza won the debate. Well, yelling doesn't count. Yelling doesn't help, but I think by a slight margin we will give it to Dinesh.
But it doesn't matter. How did people start out?
Yeah, we don't know that. Okay.
That's what matters.
Okay.